Welcome to the second unit of The Entrepreneur. Right now I'm just going to flick through and you can see where the journey will take us. And so looking at that, there are 10 units to this particular course. I'm glad you've joined us for number 2, but this is where the journey will take us. And last time that you were with us, we looked at who and what is an entrepreneur. And this time we're going to look at what is inside you, or me. What's inside you? Who and what am I? It's very, very important to really understand who we are to do anything really. But if you're going to want to be, and if I can inspire you to be an entrepreneur, you have to know what's inside you. And we need to understand ourselves well. I've discovered in life that there are a few people around who are what I call big-headed. They think they're marvellous, they think they can do anything, and they are capable of everything. But most people, I discover, are not like that. Most people know what their faults and their failings are, and most people know what they do wrong. They have learned to underestimate themselves and what they can do, or they think they can't do this, that or the other. They have what's called an inferiority, and they actually need others to come alongside. Maybe I'm doing that right now and saying, you're okay, you can do this, you're capable. I've got a friend who always said, and I've never forgotten it, he said, most people can do more than they thought they could do because somebody else thought they could do it. What can you do? What's inside you? You're okay. We need to understand, in understanding what's inside us, we need to understand what it is that has produced us. And I don't just mean our parents. I'd like you to have a look as we go through this particular unit 2 at some more famous people. And again, you can try and have a guess who they are. Here's the first one. Okay. Did you know who she is? I'm sure you do. What has produced us? What has made us who we are? Well, first of all, of course, our families produced us, and they've had a huge influence on what we are and who we are. Also, history has produced us, where we have been born and our background in the nation that we live in, or where we've lived, or even the country and the cities that we live in. The history of those things are making us who we are. Sometimes I hear young people say, oh, history is so boring. But actually, history has brought us on the journey to where we are now. I'm also a great believer that education influences us tremendously. It moulds and makes us. You think how many hours young people spend in the teachers' environment. It always makes me laugh when you listen to little children, particularly 4 and 5 year olds, and they've just started school, and the parent tries to tell them, no, you don't do it this way. Yes, I do, because the teacher said so. The teachers are incredibly powerful, and they mould and make young lives. Traditions inside us, things that we do. Why do you do it that way? Why do you do it another way? I did hear a story once about a lady who invited her mother to come for special dinner, and she cooked a turkey, and she cut the turkey in half and cooked it in 2 halves. After the dinner, the mother said, why do you cook it like that? Why did you cut it in half? And the poor girl sort of was shocked, and she said, because that's the way that you always did it. Yes, the mother said, but I didn't have much money and I only had a small tin, so I always cut it in half because I had to get it in the oven in the small tin. But you've got big tins and a big oven, you could have put it all in one go. So, but our traditions mould and make us what we are. Religion moulds and makes us, puts things inside us and makes us who we are. Better still, our faith makes us who we are. Yes, some of it is in the genes, Doesn't he look like his mother? Doesn't he look like his father? I've got lots of friends who've adopted children, and I always remember standing at a bus stop with a couple, and a lady came up while we were waiting for the bus and looked at the young lady and the young boy and said, "Oh, you can see she's definitely her mother's daughter, just looks like her, and he just looks like you. He's got all of your eyes and your..." Oh dear me, I was a bit embarrassed, but the guy who I was with said, "Happens all the time, people do it." But yes, some of our genes do affect how we are. Our environment, where we live, and the things around us, that is putting things inside us and making us who we are. Our friends, our peer group. Isn't it funny as we go through certain stages in life that we want to be part of the group, our peer group? And then my big question as to who we are and what makes us who we are is, who's your heroes? Who is it that you look up to? Who is it that you admire? Our language. I've got a little story because I've also done quite a lot of research and stuff on the subject of culture. One day I was standing in Paris with a lady who is a bit of a polyglot. She speaks about 9 different languages, and I was with a group of Tamil young people. Now, Tamil young people, or Tamil culture, if you want, if I can say it that way, is what I call a non-touchy culture. You don't touch anybody. So you don't even shake their hands when you say hello. It's "Wanakkam," hello. So it's a non-touchy culture. And this lady, she's actually an American, but she speaks the language. She said to me, "Do you want to see something very funny?" I said, "What are you going to do?" She said, "You stand over there." It was a nice warm day. We were standing outside. "Watch this group of young people and just keep watching." I said, "Okay, I'm doing that." She said, "Now watch me." So she stepped into the middle of this circle of young teens and began to talk to them in their language. Everybody's been a very good Tamil. Nobody's touching anybody. Everybody's very polite. But then she switched language. She changed to French. Now, French people are what I call very touchy. Watch them have a meal. Ask yourself, how many times do French people kiss each other? And suddenly, having changed the language, and because these were young people, they'd all gone to school in France, they were just as fluent in that language as they were in Tamil, and they all immediately, because she'd switched language, they also switched language, and suddenly they were no longer Tamils, they were French. They were putting their arms around each other, they were kissing each other, they were saying goodbye by touching each other, and I'm going, wow, language makes something and does something inside us, and probably other things inside us, and probably some things that I've missed altogether. I think it'd be good if you've got somebody around you, have a 5-minute break and discuss some of those things. What is it that's inside you? What makes you you? What's there that needs to come out? What's there that... where did it come from? Ask yourself that question. And while you're thinking, you can have a look at this guy and also think about, who is this? Okay, I hope you enjoyed your discussion, and I hope you had one, and that you've analysed yourself a little bit and decided what's inside you. And now, I want to say something also very important. Another powerful influence on us is our values. What is it that's important? What is it that I value? Our morals, if you like. That can give us a compass for life. So it's all the questions in that previous slide that we just showed you about the family and so on, but also morals, values, compass for life. Where are you going in life? What are you planning to do? Maybe you should pause for a second and think about that. And while you're doing that, here's another picture for you to look at, and you can tell me who this entrepreneur is. I think also we need to ask some very pertinent questions. And lots of times people don't ask these questions, but I think it's important to ask them. Ask the question, why am I here? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I here for, if you like? Third one, what can I do? What can you do? And as I said earlier on, you can probably do more than you thought you can do because somebody else thought you can do it. And I'm with you. And finally, what should I do? What should I do? I'm going to ask the question again that I asked in the first session is, are entrepreneurs made or are they born? Are they acquired skills or are they skills that you were just born with? Are they traits that are part of your personality that's inside you that's due to come out? What is it that really and truly makes an entrepreneur? In life, we need to ask the question. There are choices. I always believe there are choices to be made. And sometimes I look at people's lives and I think, you are there because of the choices you made back there. You could be over there, but you didn't make those choices way back there. Over and over again in life, life takes us in certain directions and we're taken along by life, but nevertheless, there are also points in life where we are given the opportunity to choose. And if we choose the wrong one, you end up sometimes regretting it. So there are choices to be made. Now, here let me give you some in this slide as well and actually tell you about it. So, who should I follow? We all tend to follow people, and I said earlier on, we have heroes. So who should I follow? Let me tell you, if you follow the wrong one, you'll end up in the wrong place. When sat-navs were first invented and we all had them in our cars and were following, I was driving around London and I ended up in Camden, and as I'm driving, my sat-nav, because I'd got one, took me up a wrong way system. And I'm suddenly realised this sat-nav is taking me the wrong way. You can't go round here, but I'm already here. And then I looked in my driving mirror and I realised that about 4 or 5 other cars had all also got sat-navs and they'd all done the same thing and we're all going around the same circle. Very, very silly. Who should I follow? But where do I get my values from as well? Because, as I said earlier on, our values are incredibly important. Where do I get those values from? Another hugely important thing, I think, is what do I believe about my creation? And it's not just my birth, but what do I believe about my creation? There's a very famous doctor who has been greatly influential on British education. And he said that education is, or young people are always told anyway, that education is for life. And if it's for life, we should teach children that life is pointless. Now, frankly, I don't believe that. I don't believe that life is pointless. If you believe that life is pointless, it will take you in a certain direction. It will influence the way that you act. It will influence the way that you think about yourself. If you think of yourself as, you know, you're just here and you're an accident, that will affect all sorts of things. So we need to be sure, what do I believe about me? Why am I here? What could I do? How can I affect things? What could I influence? Who are you going to allow to influence you? Your friends, your heroes, your mentors. All of those things are putting things inside you, and that, if you want to be an entrepreneur, will influence the way that you think about what you can do and who you can be and what you can accomplish. And while you're thinking about it, yet again, we've got another picture for you here, and this is a very famous person, and if you know who she is, maybe you should have a prize. I haven't got one for you, but maybe you should have a prize. And if you know who she is, well, let me just tell you that just recently a film came out about this lady. She's a very famous lady, a very, very famous entrepreneur. I wonder if our cameraman knows who she is. Okay, if you've thought about all those things, you're ready to ask the question, what is inside you? What is inside you? Are you asking the question? While you're asking the question, another picture for you. Have a look at it, this one. I'm sure you know who she is. You knew who she was before I put the name up, didn't you? And the other one that we looked at earlier on, here he is. I'm going to show you who he was. Walt Disney. Apparently, Walt Disney lost his job because they'd said he didn't have any particularly good ideas. So here's another thing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, don't listen to what I call, and we'll talk about it later, but what I call the cold water people. So every time you have an idea, they've got a bucket of cold water, they'll throw it over your head and say, oh, that never will work. You can't do that. That's impossible. It's a failure, blah, 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 blah. Never listen to those people. And here's the other one. I'm sure you guessed her. Did you guess that one right? And of course, sometimes when we look at entrepreneurs who are successful, we forget what their past was. And we need to remember what their past was. J.K. Rowling, of course, was on the dole at the end of her tether. She didn't really know what on earth she was doing. I remember a friend of mine, Gerald Coates, he was speaking one day at the Royal Albert Hall in London, and somebody came up to him and he said, how do you manage to be the speaker in this place? I mean, the Royal Albert Hall is a famous place to be able to invited to speak at. And he said to them, well, he said, years ago, I had this little hall and I used to get up very early in the morning and I'd go there and I'd dust the benches and clean the building. And the guy stopped him midstream and he said, no. He said, I was asking you, how did you get to be speaker at the Royal Albert Hall? And he said, I was just telling you, but you're obviously not listening. We forget how people got there. We see them where they are. We don't know the problems that they faced. And J.K. Rowling's was one of those. And right, did you get this lady? I'm going to ask, did you get this lady? Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first child in a family who were slaves, and she became the very first black multimillionaire in the USA. She developed and sold beauty products for black people, and she was a multi-millionaire, but her background was one of slavery. So, what is inside you? Have you got the wherewithal inside you? Not the money or all the other things, but inside you to be an entrepreneur. That's the end of Unit 2.